It's The Wolf Queen, Volume 6, Book 6, by Wynarth. Third Era 120. The 15-year-old Empress Kintira Septim II, daughter of Antiochus, was coronated on the third day of First Seed. Her uncles Magnus, king of Lenmoth, and Cephas, king of Gelane, were in attendance, but her aunt Potema, the Wolf Queen of Solitude, had been banished from the court. Once back in her kingdom, Queen Potema began assembling the rebellion, which was about to be known as the War of the Red Diamond. All the allies she had made over the years of disgruntled kings and nobles joined forces with her against the new empress. The first early strikes against the empire were entirely successful. Throughout SKYRIM and northern High Rock, the imperial army found themselves under attack. Potema and her forces washed over Tamriel like a plague, inciting riots and insurrections everywhere they touched. In the autumn of the year, the loyal Duke of Glenpoint, on the coast of High Rock, sent an urgent request for reinforcements from the imperial army, and Kintira, to inspire the resistance to the Wolf Queen, led the army herself. 3rd Era 121. We don't know where they are, said the Duke, deeply embarrassed. I've sent scouts out all over the countryside. I can only assume that they've retreated up north upon hearing of your army's arrival. I hate to say it, but I was hoping for a battle, said Kintira. I'd like to put my aunt's head on a spike and parade it around the empire. Her son Uriel and his army are right on the border to the imperial province, mocking me. How are they able to be so successful? Are they just that good in battle, or do my subjects truly hate me? She was tired after many months of struggling through the mud of autumn and winter, crossing the Dragontail Mountains. Her army nearly marched into an ambush. A blizzard snapped. The normally temperate barony of Dwinnen was so unexpected and severe that it must certainly have been cast by one of Potema's wizard allies. Everywhere she turned, she felt her aunt's touch, and now her chance of facing the Wolf Queen at last had been thwarted. It was almost too much to bear. It is fear, pure and simple, said the Duke. That is her greatest weapon. I need to ask, said Kintira, hoping that by sheer will she could keep her voice from revealing any of the fear the Duke spoke of. You've seen the army. Is it true that she has summoned a force of undead warriors to do her bidding? No. As a matter of fact, it's not true, but she certainly fosters that rumor. Her army attacks at night, partly for strategic reasons, and partly to advance fears like that. She has, so far as I know, no supernatural aid other than the standard battle mages and night blades of any modern army. Always at night, said Kintira thoughtfully. I suppose that's to disguise their numbers, and to move her troops into position before we're aware of them, added the Duke. She's the master of the sneak attack. When you hear a march to the east, you can be certain she's already on top of you from the south. But listen, we'll discuss this all tomorrow morning. I've prepared the castle's best rooms for you and your men. Kintira sat in her tower suite, and by the light of the moon and a single tallow candle, she penned a letter to her husband-to-be, Lord Modellus, back in the Imperial City. She hoped to be married to him in the summer at the Blue Palace her grandmother Quintilla had loved so much, but the war may not permit it. As she wrote, she gazed out the window at the courtyard below and the haunted, leafless trees of winter. 2 of her guards stood on the battlements, several feet away from one another, just like Modellus and Kintira. She thought and proceeded to expound on the metaphor in her letter. A knock on the door interrupted her poetry. A letter, your majesty, from Lord Modellus, said the young courier, handing the note to her. It was short, and she read it quickly before the courier had a chance to retire. I'm confused by something. When did he write this? 1 week ago, said the courier. He said it was urgent, and that I make it here as quickly as possible while he mobilized the army. I imagine they've left the city already? Kintira dismissed the courier. Modella said that he had received a letter from her, urgently calling for reinforcements to the battle at Glen Point. But there was no battle at Glen Point, and she had only just arrived today. Then who wrote the letter in her handwriting, and why would they want Modellas to bring a second army out of the Imperial City into High Rock? Feeling a chill from the night air at the window, Kintira went to shut the latch. The two guards on the battlements were gone. She leaned over at the sound of a muffled struggle behind one of the barren trees, and did not hear the door open. When she turned, she saw Queen Potema and Menton, Duke of Glenpoint, in the room with a host of guards. "You move quietly, Aunt," she said after a moment's pause. She turned to the Duke. "What turned you against your loyalty to the Empire? Fear?" "And gold?" said the Duke simply. "What happened to my army?" asked Kintira, trying to look Potema steadily in the face. "Is the battle over so soon?" "All your men are dead," smiled Potema. "But there was no battle here, merely quiet and efficient assassination. There will be battles ahead, against Modellas in the Dragon Tail Mountains, and against the remnants of the Imperial Army in the city. I'll send you regular updates on the progress of the war." "So I am to be kept here as your hostage?" asked Kintira flatly, suddenly aware of the solidity of the stones and the great height of her tower room. "Damn you! Look at me, I'm your empress. Think of it this way, I'm taking you from being a fifth-rate ruler to a first-rate martyr," said Potema with a wink. "But I understand if you don't want to thank me for that." Well, that's number 6. Wolf Queen number 7. By Wine 3rd Era 125. The exact date of the Empress Kintira Septim II's execution in the tower at Gunpoint Castle is open to some speculation. Some believe she was slain shortly after her imprisonment in the 121st year, while others maintain that she was likely kept alive as a hostage until shortly before her uncle Severus, King of Ghislaine, reconquered western High Rock in the summer of the 125th year. The certainty of Kintira's demise rallied many against the Wolf Queen Potema and her son, who had been crowned Emperor Uriel Septim III 4 years previously, when he invaded the underguarded Imperial City. Severus concentrated his army on the war in High Rock, while his brother Magnus, King of Lymeth, brought his Argonian troops through loyal Morrowind and into SKYRIM to fight in Potema's home province. The reptilian troops fought well in the summer months, but during the winter they retired south to regroup and attack again when the weather was warm. At this stalemate, the war lasted out 2 more years. Also in the 125th year, Magnus's wife Helena gave birth to their first child, a boy who they named Pelagius, after the emperor who fathered Magnus, Severus, the late Emperor Antiochus, and the Dread Wolf Queen of Solitude. 3rd Era 127. Potema sat on soft silk cushions in the warm grass in front of her tent and watched the sun rise over the dark woods on the other side of the meadow. It was a peculiar, vibrant morning, typical of Skyrim's summertide. The high chirrup of insects buzzed all around her, and the sky surged with thousands of following birds, rolling over one another and forming a multitude of patterns. Nature was unaware of the war coming to Falkenstar, she surmised. "Your Highness, a message from the army in Hammerfell," said one of her maids, bringing in a courier. He was breathing hard, stained with sweat and mud, evidence of a long, fast ride over many, many miles. "My queen," said the courier, looking to the ground, "I bring grave news of your son, the Emperor. He met your brother King Severus' army in Hammerfell in the countryside of Ikedag, and there did battle. You would be proud, for he fought well, but in the end the Imperial army was defeated and your son, our Emperor, was captured. King Zephyrus is bringing him to Ghislaine. Potema listened to the news, scowling. That clumsy fool, she said at last. Potema stood up and strolled into camp, where the men were arming themselves, preparing for battle. Long ago, the soldiers understood that their lady did not stand on ceremony, and she would prefer that they work rather than salute her. Lord Vulcan was ahead of her, already meeting with the commander of the battle mages, discussing last-minute strategy. "My queen," said the courier, who had been following her, "what are you going to do?" "I'm going to win this battle with Magnus, despite his superior position holding the ruins of Cogmenthus Castle," said Potema. "And then when I know what Zephyrus means to do with the Emperor, I'll respond accordingly. If there's a ransom to be paid, I'll pay it. If there's a prison exchange needed, so be it. Now please bathe yourself and rest, and try not to get in the way of the war." "It's not an ideal scenario," said Lord Vulcan, when Potema had entered the commander's tent. "If we attack the castle from the west, we'll be running directly into the fire from their mages and archers. If we come from the east, we'll be going through swamps. And the Argonians do better in that type of environment than we do, a lot better." "What about the north and south? Just hills, correct?" "Very steep hills, your highness," said the commander. "We should post bowmen there, but we'll be too vulnerable putting out the majority of our force." "So it's a swamp," said Potema, and added pragmatically, "unless we withdraw and wait for them to come out before fighting. If we wait, Zephyrus will have his army here from High Rock, and we'll be trapped between the two of them," said Lord Vulcan. "Not a preferable situation." "I'll talk to the troops," said the commander. "Try to prepare them for the swamp attack." "No," said Potema, "I'll speak to them." In full battle gear, the soldiers gathered in the center camp. They were a motley collection of men and women, Cyrodiils, Nords, Bretons, and Dummer, young bloods and old veterans, the sons and daughters of nobles, shopkeepers, serfs, priests, prostitutes, farmers, academics, adventurers, all of them under the banner of the Red Diamond, the symbol of the imperial family of Tamriel. "My children," Potema said, her voice ringing out, hanging in the still morning mist, "we have fought in many battles together, over mountaintops and beachheads, through forests and deserts. I have seen great acts of valor from each one of you, which does my heart proud. I have also seen dirty fighting, backstabbing, cruel and wanton feats of savagery, which pleases me equally well, for you are all warriors." Warming to her theme, Potema walked the line from soldier to soldier, looking each one in the eye. "War is in your blood, in your brain, in your muscles, in everything you think and everything you do. When this war is over, when the forces are vanquished that seek to deny the throne to the true Emperor, Uriel Septim III, you may cease to be warriors. You may choose to return to your lives before the war, to your farms and your cities, and show off your scars, tell tales of the deeds you did this day to your wondering neighbors. But on this day, make no mistake, you are warriors. You are war." She could see her words were working. All around her, bloodshot eyes were focusing on the slaughter to come, arms tensing around weapons. She continued in her loudest cry, "And you will move through the swamplands like an unstoppable power from the blackest part of oblivion, and you will rip the scales from the reptilian things in Cogmenthus Castle. You are warriors, and you need not only fight, you must win. You must win." The soldiers roared in response, shocking the birds from the trees all around the camp. From a vantage point on the hills to the south, Potema and Lord Vulcan had excellent views of the battle as it raged. It looked like two swarms of two colors of insects moving back and forth over a clump of dirt, which was the castle ruins. Occasionally a burst of flame or a cloud of acid from one of the mages would flicker over the battle, arresting their attention. But hour after hour the fighting seemed like nothing but chaos. A rider approaches, said Lord Vulcan, breaking the silence. The young Redguard woman was wearing the crest of Ghislaine, but carried a white flag. Potema allowed her to approach. Like the courier from the morning, the rider was well travel-worn. Your Highness, she said, out of breath, I have been sent from your brother, my Lord King Sepphoris, to bring your dire news. Your son Uriel was captured in Icdag on the field in battle, and from there transported to Ghislaine. I know all this, said Potema scornfully. I have couriers of my own. You can tell your master that after I've won this battle, I'll pay whatever ransom or exchange. Your Highness, an angry crowd met the caravan your son was in before it made it to Ghislaine. The rider said quickly, your son is dead. He had been burned to death within his carriage. He is dead. Potema turned from the young woman and looked down at the battle. Her soldiers were going to win. Magnus's army was in retreat. One other item of news, your Highness, said the rider. King Sepphoris is being proclaimed emperor. Potema did not look at the woman. Her army was celebrating their victory. Well, that's it.